We are here with Jim Sorenson and Bill Forster, the authors of many a fine Transformers tome, but most recently the Transformers Legacy book, which I have been lusting over for quite a while. It's out. Amazon hasn't gotten my copy to me yet, but XV did the tformers.com review, so he is quite familiar with the book. So, guys, how's it going?
It's going really well.
It's been about 8 months since we last spoke with, it was Jim in respect to the book. So in the interim, quite a few things have happened, but I know some people haven't heard about this before. So what led you guys to decide to put a book together like this?
When we first got together and started working on the arcs, it was just immediately, what we should do is we should do the box art. So when we were working on the arc, even before it came out, we would talk to people and what have you and show them what we were doing, and everybody would say, like, oh, that's really interesting. However, what I really want to see is all the airbrushed artwork from the box art. And just over the years, people would come up to us and say, you guys should do this. And it's always been in the back of our minds, and it just wasn't until now that we could actually pull it off.
Yeah, one of the big challenges with this book was just logistic, was just getting our hands on the artwork, because I think when people were suggesting to us, oh, you guys should do this, the thought process was probably one of two things. Either one, Hasbro probably has all this art, which is a logical assumption, but it's not one that happened to be true. Or, I've seen most of this art on the internet in varying degrees, so it shouldn't be too hard to pull together, which could be true if we were okay with having the artwork be, the size of a postage stamp, but the way we wanted to do it, with the page, pieces being either a full page or a reasonable percentage of the page, we really needed to go back to the primary source and immediate secondary source material, the original paintings or first generation copies like photo negatives.
What took so long for us to get all these things together too is we didn't want to have to sit down and have to recreate the legs or an arm that got cut off in the package after you get in front of the package, or where there's letters or numbers over the image itself. We wanted to be able to just do it as easily as possible, because we knew it was going to be a lot of images, and we didn't want to have this big burden of reconstructing 800 images.
Keep in mind that when the original artists were creating these pieces, they had 2 to 4 weeks per image to create them. So if we wanted to have Bill redraw a leg, that's a week's worth of work. And there's 700-800 images in the book that we wanted to be able to cover. So we frankly we didn't have the budget to spend 700 or 800 weeks on the book.
So you've published a lot of books. Would you say this was one of the hardest to compile in the end?
Oh, absolutely. No, Jim did the compiling.
I did the gathering of the source material, but I'd say in virtually any axis that you might want to measure, this was the hardest book that we've done. It was the hardest to track down the material, the hardest to restore the material. So the most difficult in terms of making sure that the ownership of the material was properly sourced, so we could legally use the material, which not something we had to do, but something Hasbro had to do. So yeah, it was a tough one.
Now you reached out to the fandom to help source the art. First, what kind of response did you get from the fandom, and how much of the art in the book actually did come to you through the help of fans?
Well, depending on how you just because of the way you phrase that question, I'd say virtually 100% came to us with the help of fans. But that's a little bit me being playing semantic games, because about 40, roughly speaking, about 40% of the art came to us from Takara via their design firm, and the person who was really taking the lead there was Andrew Hall, who goes by Hydra sometimes, and he's definitely a fan. And then for Hasbro, they had, I'd say roughly about 10% of the material of the book came directly from Hasbro archives, and there I was working with Rick Alvarez, who again definitely counts as a fan.
Right.
But to get to the substance of your question, I'd say roughly half of it came from non-official sources.
Okay.
So that makes sense. When you put it in that respect. So out of everything that's in the book, what are you most proud of?
The fact that it's done.
I can respect that.
I think for me, I'm proud that it's the first time we've had a hardcover, and I just really feel like it's because it took so long for us to put. We had the idea so early on in our Transformers career that it took so long to put together. It just feels like a larger accomplishment than anything else we've done.
It's hard for me to point to any one piece and say I'm proudest of this. The way my mind tends to work is I get very focused on what I don't have. So, whatever I would probably be proudest of is sort of whatever the last piece I found was, because it's like, oh, I didn't think I was going to get that one in the book, and we did. I think the very last piece of art that we got into the book was one of the 3 UK puzzle pieces. And that came in really, really late, like sort of after we'd submitted our first draft to IDW, and we kind of, like, in frustration threw up our hands and said, we're done with the book. And then things had gotten cut and we needed a little bit more space. And I said, well, I do happen to have this one last piece if we can shove it in. Not that I necessarily am proudest of that now, but since that happened to be the last one. And I think what I'm proudest about is just how comprehensive we managed to get with it, because that was never the goal. We never thought we could accomplish that, because we knew, even looking at what Takara had in their archives, they had a lot, but we knew they had huge gaps. So we never pitched it to IDW, and we never really allowed ourselves to believe that we'd be able to get 100% or close to 100% of the material that was in scope. So the fact that we almost did, though, I think that the only thing we're missing from G1 US is a couple of Action Masters and then Jetfire for legal reasons. We're really, really proud of that.
We always kind of thought that we'd just have like a representation of every year. But I think another thing I think both me and Jim are very proud of is the last 2 chapters of the book are unused materials as well as oddities. And I think it just really helps pepper some spice onto the book and really add an element of the book that really gives some depth to it and gives fans that may have seen every single thing before something new to see.
Yeah, I think that certainly for anybody, even if you're a really big fan of the box art, even if if Botch the Crab is your homepage, you'll have material in here that you've never seen before, because it hasn't been published before, to our knowledge. Of course, in 5 years or so, this stuff, it'll be all over the web. But for right now, it's like, this is what will introduce it to the world.
But I was really impressed with the things in unused and oddities. There was stuff in there I'd never seen before, and I was wondering, based on that, were there things that you were offered contributions of that you guys had never seen before?
For me, yes. For me, I couldn't list them off right now, but Jim is much more of as much of a fan as I am. Jim puts me to shame as being a much hardcore fan. So he would send me a lot of things that I would just go, what is this? And he'd have to explain it to me, or where did this come from? So for me, yeah, it was very exciting, because I'd wake up in the morning and see what he sent me, and it would be these unusual things that I'd never seen before.
Yeah, I absolutely encountered material that I had no idea existed. And sometimes I didn't even necessarily recognize it as such when I was first looking at it, and I had to process it. A good example of that is the U.S. Release of Multiforce, or half of Multiforce, that never happened. For all I know, there's artwork for the other 3 guys too, and maybe even the combined form. But I came across those 3 pieces, and actually the first, and they were I think those were photo negatives. So of course the color was reversed. So I was getting used to looking at things that were a little bit off anyway. And I was looking at those, and at first I think I dismissed them. I looked at them and I said, "Oh yeah, Mock, I have him." And I was going through it, and I think it wasn't until later that I said, it sort of hit my subconscious. Said, "Wait a minute! No, I don't. I have Mock Tackle. I don't have Mock, do I? Because I didn't even know that. So I went back and I looked, and so that was one of those cases. I think the full-on box art for Full Barrel and Overflow, the Micromaster Combiner Transport, that was pretty neat because, of course, we've I don't want to say everybody has, because probably not everybody has, but on the back of the package for Full Barrel and Overflow, the front they have the really nice artwork of the truck, and on the back they have their heads in little circles, which is what they did for all of those guys. But usually they just pulled out the heads from the from the image of the vehicle, which is not what they did in that case. So I assume that they had intended to feature both of those characters, with a nice full splash, and then cut it and just use the heads. But that was one that Rick Alvarez at Hasbro had dredged up, and he's like, I don't think anybody's used these before. I'm like, oh, cool. And I honestly, I wasn't quite as knowledgeable about Micromasters going into it, so I sort of took him at his word, and he was right. But it that was another one where it didn't immediately hit me. But then when I started doing my homework, I'm like, oh no, this is actually really kind of a neat piece. Now that was one of the ones I teased at Auto Assembly. I showed off the heads with the bodies blackened in, and coming in June 2014, which is a little optimistic, but only a few months off actually, as it turns out.
So I know there's quite a few things that you guys received that you couldn't use. So was there anything that you just wanted to use but couldn't because it was incomplete or damaged or anything like that? Anything else like that?
Well, the thorn in my side was we had to remove Jetfire for legal reasons, and that just bothered me for a matter of completion. But I don't think I can think of anything else. We had some Action Masters come our way that were just of too poor quality. We can post those.
Yeah, a lot of fans really wanted to help and had sent box scans, but as it turns out, we just in almost no cases were box scans something where the quality was there. We thought we might be able to get away with it with someone like Trypticon, the U.S. version of Trypticon, because it's such a large box that even maybe if you shrunk it by half, we'd be able to do it. But then his whole tail was cut off.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, and then we weren't. He was one of those weird cases where we kind of convinced ourselves, yeah, we can probably live with this because we have the Japanese version of him in the book, and then we had this sort of funky unused version, like an early draft of him in the book. So, and I had a full version of Trypticon that we could use, smaller than sort of Trypticon could be, but in the context of comparing him to the other Trypticons, we kind of thought, okay, we could get away with it. But the only thing I can think of where Bill had to do a little restoration was one of the Action Masters that came to us from Hasbro had some water damage on it, just a little bit. But I think you had to do that. But we actually got into the book, so that's not exactly what you're asking.
So Jetfire you couldn't use for legal reasons. Did you expect that going in, or did you that just land in your lap in the course of doing the work?
It just landed on our lap. Yeah,
because Hasbro's used Jetfire image in other media. Bill found a deck of cards that was published pretty recently where they'd used them. But I think it's hard for us to comment knowledgeably about what exactly is going through Hasbro Legal's mind. But it's their job to keep
protect their brand.
Yeah. So.
And we all know about Harmony Gold. So, question. Sorry, I just had to say it. So, I'm surprised, though, if with Jetfire that there wasn't something else that might have been used, like any other Bandai, originated toy or something like that. But pretty interesting about that. Kind of sad, but I'll live with it.
Yeah. Well,
so
Bandai probably wasn't the issue then.
No. Yeah. Gotcha. Let's see here. So what's next for you guys? I know there's a complete version of the Allspark Almanac coming out. Yeah. Is there any new material?
There's the status of the Allspark Almanac, complete Allspark Almanac, hasn't been 100% decided. I was pushing and am, for as much as we can, but that's mostly going to be the fan club material, partially because there hasn't been more animated except for what the fan club has produced.
Yeah.
So, if there had been a season 4, then I'd be pushing to have 40 new pages and cover all the season 4 episodes and characters, but there hasn't. So, but that may or may not happen. That's our editors are on board, but there could be other factors involved. So hopefully, fingers crossed that we'll be able to do the version that has sort of everything that's been branded Allspark Almanac.
Well, what we do know definitively about that is what the cover looks like, and the cover's fantastic.
Ooh, pretty cool. Can you tell us what's on the cover at the very least?
Awesome artwork.
Good answer.
Do you plan on anything else? Go ahead.
A lot of characters.
Sweet. Do you plan on doing anything else in the vein of Legacy, or maybe another G.I. Joe field manual or anything like that?
We always have a handful of ideas going. Nothing is greenlit as of now, but which means we're not no liberty to talk about anything. But yes, we always have at least 3 or 4 ideas burning somewhere.
Yeah,
something's going on.
Legacy has just come out, so we don't know what the sales figures look like. But if that does well, that could open the door for other packaging art, maybe more Transformers packaging art for later, Beast Wars and beyond, maybe G.I. Joe packaging art, or who knows. So there's that. We always have fun with the black and white animation model books, and there's still plenty of that hasn't yet seen the light of day. There's all the Japanese Beast Wars and Car Robots / the first Robots in Disguise, which ironically now we probably would be back to sort of calling it Car Robots because it might be simpler, especially if we did it in the context of Beast Wars 2nd, Beast Wars Neo, and of course I did the Art of Prime last year, so now they're doing Robots in Disguise, so that might be a potential book, and Hasbro has lots of not Hasbro. IDW has lots of other licenses of books that we'd be interested in. So, we always sort of pitch 5 or 6 a year. They usually buy 1 or 2. So it's not a bad position to be in, really.
And if you want to, before the interview, I did suggest the Transformers fan tattoos, the art of the fan tattoo. You can use that. I will for perpetuity. Whenever you want to do it, you don't have to any kickbacks or anything. It's yours.
No, thank you. As a tattoo fan, I really like that idea. I think that's a lot of fun.
My friend Bob, he has a great Decepticon tattoo. It's mostly the right shape. I mean, I can send you photos.
Mostly the right shape.
It's mostly the right shape.
I think that's a good quote for the back of the book. It's mostly
Transformers fan tattoos. It's mostly the right shape.
So, XV, any other parting thoughts, questions that you are dying to know the answer to?
Well, I don't have any more questions, but I do have one thought. This is a great book, you guys. You really, hit this out of the park. I love this. Everybody needs to pick up a copy of this. I mean, like you said earlier, there is something new in here for everyone to see. I mean, you did a really great job on this. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. We appreciate the feedback, and we definitely think that everybody, man, woman, child, doesn't matter if you're a Transformers fan or not, I think everybody should have one of these. So now you know what's on everybody's Christmas list.
Better be.
Yeah.
Guys, anything else? Anything you want to tell the fans before we part ways?
Thanks for helping us put together this book. I mean, it was a dream of ours, and we appreciate everybody who contributed to it, and we hope everybody loves it, and thanks for buying it.
Yeah, absolutely. We could not have done it without the help of the fans. And hey, if you find this book or you find this interview and you have some original artwork or some photo negatives or transparencies of something that didn't make it in, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you have animation models, we crowdsource, quite a lot of what we do. So, we're always looking for more material. If you want to contribute, we always try to make sure that everybody who had a hand in making the books as special as they are get their acknowledgments. So definitely would love to hear from you. Or if you just want to let us know what you liked, what you didn't like about the books.
And Brian, if you have any other ideas for books, send them our way too.
I absolutely will. Believe me. Well, Bill, Jim, thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.